quite an introduction. So, I'm a pretty patient person. I think if you were to ask all of my best friends to describe me, they would all probably use that word within the first couple sentences. I pride myself on my patience, my ability to go with the flow, not to panic when things go awry. And patience is an important skill for me to have in order to do my job well, in order to enjoy my job, in order to enjoy my life. For the past 5 years, I've been running a nonprofit, Community Water Solutions, in rural Ghana. And I love my job. It's a dream. It's something I hope that I'll be doing for the rest of my working life. But it's not easy, and it's definitely not glamorous, and patience is key. Before I started Community Water Solutions, I was an aerospace engineer. And I picked that major when I was applying to college because I liked math, and I did pretty well in physics, and I loved the movie Apollo 13. You know that scene when Ed Harris is in the room with all of the aerospace engineers, and they're trying to figure out how to get the astronauts home from space? I loved that. I thought, that's what engineering is, and that's what I want to do. And so being the typical type A, overachieving, oldest child in my family person that I was, I set a goal and I went for it. Full steam ahead, NASA, here I come. And I worked hard, and I did well, and I was focused. And one of my best friends, Emily, from college, likes to tell this story about how one day we were in the library studying, and there was an earthquake. And when the tremors started, everybody kind of stopped what they were doing and started freaking out, everyone except for me. I had my headphones on, and I was blasting Justin Timberlake, and I was working on a problem set, and I didn't even flinch. I didn't even notice the earthquake. And for me, I think my passion for international development is a lot like that earthquake. I was so focused on this goal that I had arbitrarily set for myself when I was 18 that I almost didn't notice it. I almost didn't feel the tremors. And I think that tends to be a problem with us type A people sometimes. We have a hard time kind of veering off this road that we set for ourselves. Before I had gone to college, I had never left North America. I had never been to a developing country, and I certainly never thought that I would end up living and working in West Africa. But then one day on a whim, I went on a volunteer trip to Nicaragua with some of my friends for spring break. And that's when those tremors really started. But I barely even flinched. I came back to school, I put my headphones back on, I turned Justin Timberlake way up, and I got back to work. But the tectonic plates had shifted, and something had changed. And so by the time graduation rolled around, my passport was filled with stamps. I had been back to Nicaragua 5 times, I went to Cameroon, I joined Engineers Without Borders, and I started learning about the global water crisis. And I was interested, and I was intrigued, and I was excited. And I almost turned off that road to NASA, almost. But then a job that I had lined up in Nicaragua fell through, and so I veered back on track, I put my hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, and I accepted a job at an aerospace engineering firm. But by then, I had truly been shaken. I couldn't really ignore the earthquake anymore, and so after a year of being totally miserable at that job, I got the courage to kind of let go of my 18-year-old self's weird obsession with a Tom Hanks movie and change kind of the course that I was on, even though I wasn't really sure where I was going to end up. And so I think my patience is kind of my coping mechanism. It's my type A self way of dealing with these life choices that I made, my way of navigating down this road that's filled with potholes that I chose for myself when all the other streets are paved and smooth and easy. Now, my patience is tested in Ghana basically every day that I'm working there. Nothing ever goes the way that it's planned. Things take 10 times longer than you think that they're going to. There's problems that arise every single day. And so I often find myself thinking about that aerospace engineering job and my air-conditioned office and how easy that career would have been for me. And that's a dangerous game to play, to look back and think about things that you decided not to do. And it's especially dangerous when it's 100 degrees out and you're covered in dirt and sweat and you haven't eaten all day long. And never have I played that game more than when I tried to buy a truck in Ghana. It was about 3 years ago, actually almost exactly 3 years ago today, and I had just finished graduate school, and I had moved to Ghana to try and get Community Water Solutions off the ground. And we had just received our biggest donation ever, $5,000, and we were gonna buy a used truck with that money. And we were so excited. Before that time, we had been using taxis to get out into these really rural villages, and they were really expensive and unreliable and just not really well suited for the roads that we were taking them on. So the truck was gonna be the answer to our prayers. Our staff was thrilled. So me and one of my staff members, Peter, and a mechanic traveled about 6 hours south of where we work to a city called Kumasi. And apparently Kumasi was the mecca of used cars and used trucks and all the parts that you need to make them work. And so we got there around 1 o'clock, February 22nd, and we checked into a guest house, and Peter and the mechanic turned to me and they said, okay, well now you're gonna stay here, and we're gonna go out and we'll go look around at some used car dealerships and we'll come back and let you know what we find, because if you come with us, the price is gonna double. It's not gonna be worth it, we need a good deal. And I was annoyed. I just traveled 6 hours. I was excited. I had raised this money. I wanted to find the truck too, but I understood why we had to do that. So they said they'd be back in an hour. And I waited. An hour passes. I waited about 3 hours, and they come back, and they have a list of 5 trucks. And all of them are way out of our price range. I mean, like, not even possible. It's not gonna happen. And I'm starting to get even more annoyed and more frustrated. I felt like no one was listening to me, but remember, I'm a patient person, so I took a deep breath, and I wrote our budget in huge letters and circled it 100 times on a piece of paper and said, go back out and don't come back again with a list like that one. And so they left, and about an hour later, Peter called me, and he was so excited, and he said, Kate, we found the truck. It's in our price range, the mechanic says it looks great, and it's gonna be gone by tomorrow. You gotta get here now, we have to buy it. So I hopped in a taxi, and we went to the car dealership, and I saw this bad boy. And it was beautiful. 1985 Mitsubishi pickup. We took it for a test spin, and this was the stuff dreams were made of. We were just envisioning all of the villages we were now gonna be able to reach now that we had this truck. It was great. And so we got back to the car dealership, and I talked to the salesman, and he reminded me of a small fact that I knew about Ghana, but I had kind of pushed into the back of my mind because I wasn't really sure what to do about it when we were leaving our home base. And that was, if you want to buy something, it has to be in cash. Anything that you want, even trucks that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And so I just smiled and said, yeah, of course, we have the cash, we'll be back tomorrow, no problem. Start getting the registration ready, we want this. And on the way back to our hotel, started to get a little nervous, but I don't typically panic, so I just tried to think of a plan, and we passed all of these Western Union signs. And I thought, oh, that's it, easy. Look at me thinking on my feet, we're gonna get the cash. I'll just have someone wire it from our bank account in the States. So I called my friend in New York. He went to a Western Union, tried to transfer the money, didn't work. He went to another Western Union, tried to transfer the money, didn't work. He went to a third Western Union. At this point, it was about 2 a.m. in Ghana. Again, I'm starting to get nervous, trying not to panic, trying to be patient. And the person at the third place told us that all of the computer systems in New York City at all the Western Unions had been down, and that's why it wasn't working, which would have been helpful information for the person at the first place to tell us, but either way, now we knew the problem. So I went to bed thinking, great, we'll just get it in the morning. So now we wake up day 2 in Kumasi. It's February 23rd. And I figure, well, let's just go to a bank and see what will happen so we have a plan B. And I go and take out money, and the ATM gives me $500. And I thought, great, plan B. We'll just drive around to ATMs, and I'll get $500 from all of them, and it will all add up, and then we'll go buy the truck. But we went to the second ATM, didn't work. I called my bank, and they said, of course you can't take out thousands of dollars on your ATM card in Ghana. It's not allowed. The most you can take out is $500. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just be patient. We'll wait for this transfer to go through. We'll go back with our money and talk to the salesman now. So we went back to the car place and showed him what we did have and started going through the process of getting the truck ready. which involved going to the DMV, which I'm sure you can imagine what that experience is like here. It's 10 times worse in Ghana. But I thought, this is great. This is where my patience is paying off. We're buying time for this transfer to go through. So then it becomes, we're 5 hours ahead in Ghana, so the business hours start in the States, and try and make a transfer from New York. Again, it doesn't work. Go to another place in New York, it doesn't work. Are you guys getting impatient now for the end of the story? And so I thought, okay, let's just abandon New York. I called my mom in Boston and asked her to try from there. And around 8 p.m. on the second day in Kumasi, she called and said, "Success, here's your number. The transfer's gone through. You can get it tomorrow morning." And I told the car salesman, "Great, we're going to get the car tomorrow morning. We're finally going to have our truck." So I woke up the next morning, now our third day in Kumasi, February 24th. And I went to the bank and I gave them my number, and they said, "Oh, your number's not in the system." You thought the story would be over, but it's not. And I called my mother and woke her up in the middle of the night, checked the number. She said it was correct, and he said, "That number's incorrect. I don't know what else to tell you. You should go to another bank." And I said, "But if the number's incorrect, why is another bank going to help me?" And he said, "It's not. I just really don't want to talk to you anymore, so please leave." And so I went to another bank and had the exact same conversation, basically, and called Western Union and finally found out they had flagged our transfer because they thought it was drug money. Apparently, if you transfer thousands of dollars in the middle of the night to the middle of a random city in West Africa, it gets flagged sometimes. So I talked them into releasing the money, and they gave it to me in the bank in 20s, like $7,500 in 20s in a big bag. And I brought it back to the dealership, and I gave it to this guy, our car salesman. That is an actual picture that I took while I was there. His name was Big Alex, and as he sat there and counted $7,500 in 20s, he kind of started chuckling, and he looked at me and said, "Kate," and I was like, "Yeah, Big Alex." He's like, "I like you." And so I wish I could tell you that this long story ends there and that the truck is awesome and we're still using it today, but fortunately, it's not. That truck broke down almost every damn day that we used it, and it was way more of a headache than it ever was worth, and we sold it last year after 2 years of having it for less than half of the price that I had bought it for. But the reason why I chose to share this story and the reason why I like it so much isn't because it has a happy ending, because it clearly doesn't. It was because throughout that entire frustrating process, and even though we ended up selling the truck last year, and even though throughout that process I kept thinking about the job that I had given up and the air-conditioned office and how easy that career would have been for me, I still laughed more and had so much more fun through those 3 horribly long days in Kumasi than I ever had on my best day in that other job. And I realized that this experience was a big turning point for me. It's when I realized just how glad I was that I had let myself veer off that original course that I had set, and that I was stronger not because I had plowed through and persevered and tried to achieve this goal that I had originally set for myself, but I was stronger because I had changed my mind. And I was happier, and I was certainly a much more patient person. So thank you very much for listening.